Go. Ready? So when people ask me why I became interested in space, the answer is simple: astronauts. They have been, if Wikipedia does a lie, 528 astronauts so far in space, and unfortunately they are losing popularity, let's say, because the first ones were real heroes, and nowadays they try, you know, but the figure of a hero evolve. So I invite you to come with me to a space trip through the public figure of the astronauts. So let's start with the first one. I went to Russia once and I fell in love with this guy, the first one, the next slide, with Yuri Gagarin. Is it moving? Oh, I'm talking too fast then. Okay. Okay, so Yuri Gagarin, as you know, was the first one, and he was only 27 years old, shorter than me, but he managed to get to the final, and among 3,000 candidates, he made it. Why was he the chosen one? It is said that he was chosen not only because he was good enough, also because people could identify themselves with him. He was he was coming from humble origins, and people just love him. They can think like, okay, I could be him, but he was such a hero. They changed the names of the streets for him. He toured the world, and he really made an impact not only in Russia, also in the States. But in the States, even if they weren't the first ones, they tried to sell the idea of, okay, maybe we are not the first ones, but we are the best ones. And they picture this shiny, splendid crew, super pilots, also heroes, and people wanted to know a lot about them. They sold their personal stories to magazines, and it was another way to sell the figure of a hero. They drove sportive cars, so everybody wanted to be an astronaut. With the Apollo missions, the thing changed a bit because the goal was more ambitious. But also they managed to, these astronauts, like Armstrong, they managed to inspire for action, for adventure. They convey the message of, this is worth it, this is difficult, but we can do it, and we are the best ones in doing this. Unfortunately, the post-moon landing effect wasn't that good for the shuttle astronauts because, of course, Jen, you can be a hero, but maybe just for one day. There were more and more astronauts, and the number was larger, so it was difficult for people to retain all these names or all these stories. So a good consequence of this is, of course, that NASA smartly sold the idea of democratization of the space. You don't need to be a super pilot to go to space. You can be a teacher, you can be a scientist, you can be an engineer. At the same time, you lose a bit of romanticism, but okay, you can make it. So after the shuttle, or during the period that we are going through in the ISS, the figure of the astronaut, it became professionalized. They are professionals. They go there to carry out the mission, to fulfill the task, and they are no longer maybe the total astronauts that we were used to see. Now they are the mission specialists. And there are two values that they promote, all agencies. Those are international cooperation and teamwork. Without that, you cannot be an astronaut, you cannot go to space. But now I would like to tell you about the three options that I see for the, no, I mixed it up. So women, here we are. 56 women made it to space. So this is also a reflection of our society in the same sense that we are getting more and more highest positions, so we can fly to space. Unfortunately, we needed 2 decades, I think, after Tereshkova for the second woman to fly, but now this is becoming more normal, and we have not so long ago recently Liu Yang, the taikonaut. Sunita Williams is breaking her own record, flying for the 6th time into space. Samantha will do it wonderfully in 2014, the European, and there is one Russian woman, a cosmonaut, already training in Star City for 2014 too, or maybe a bit earlier. So the future explorers, the future astronauts, robots, maybe, why not? There is already one there. He doesn't breathe, he's getting used to microgravity, and he has 57,000 followers in Twitter. More than you and I. So the second option, the astronauts, the communicators. Paulo knows a lot about this. you are more what you share than what you are nowadays. But that happens also to us maybe in our society. So it's very important that the astronauts invite the audience to take part of the mission, to share what they are doing, to tell them stories, to make them excited. So these are the top per agency, the top ones. So they are doing quite well. And they are an example. Twitter is helping a lot to make the space adventure something that we can check every day. The third option, the option that I like most, the tourist, because you can be one of them, maybe, if you have enough money. The companies are targeting entrepreneurs, adventurous people. They say that actually right now there are 40,000 people with enough money to pay a suborbital and maybe less for the orbital flights. But okay, they sell also a sense of accomplishment. Maybe this is the way, the commercialization of space. And to finish the trip, I would like to go back to the first cosmonaut, the first astronaut all times, and this reflection to highlight with this quote how important is that there is always someone willing to break the frontiers, to go beyond, and get into space. Let's go. And if I have 2 minutes, maybe I could be more interactive, and I would like to ask you, who is your favorite astronaut and why? Because maybe with these characteristics, we can build up the perfect future astronaut. Thank you. Do I have 1 minute? Okay. We start here. So, who is your favorite astronaut?
Hello, I met André 1 week ago, and I think that he's the most favorite because André Coopers, yeah, because he's really open, he's always smiling, you know, always want to talk with everyone, and he's so open, like he behave like he will be one of us. So I like it. I like him for it.
So a normal and human person. Anyone else? Another favorite astronaut? Wicho.
Hi there, I'm Wicho. You know me, I talked yesterday. I had three favorite astronauts. One is Paolo, the other one is Mike Massimino, and the third one is Douglas Willock. I've met the three at different meetings, and I think just the same as him. They're quite, they're just like us. They intermingle with us, they talk with everyone, and I think that's basic for the future of the space programs. You have to get to the people, to let the people know what they're doing.
Third one, you said? You want?
Well, there's two very important ones, and there's pretty much been the pioneers of space exploration. So there's Yuri Gagarin, who's the first person to fly into space, and there's Neil Armstrong, who put his first foot on the moon. And yeah, there's the people like you kind of remember. I mean, you'll meet astronauts, and they'll be awesome the moment you were there. But there's this great visionaries, and I think a lot of the people who are astronauts today wouldn't have chosen that path if it wasn't for Yuri Gagarin and for Armstrong and the big leaders.
So we need to break a record then. We need to find an astronaut who can break a record, and then we will have the ideal one.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and my favorite astronaut is Anousheh Ansari, the first woman, Iranian woman. Was not she was a space tourist, but I read her book, and she's really inspiring, especially for women. She always dreamt of going to space, and she did it, and that's why I like her.
Nice, nice. That's it. Anyone else? Ah, someone there. I run.
I'm sorry. My name is Heather. My favorite astronaut is Eileen Collins because she is one of the very few women to reach the title of colonel in the Air Force as a pilot. She was the very first pilot of a space shuttle, and that was the very first launch I saw, was a woman pilot. And she was also later the first female commander of a space shuttle.
That is a record.
My name is Christian, Gravinout on Twitter. It's hard to say which is your favorite astronaut. There are more, because there's John Young. He did Gemini 2 flights, Apollo 2 flights, and he did shuttle command on the first one to go on a never-tested rocket, which is space shuttle. It was an incredible mission. And, well, I have to add the female side as well. I'm at my first meeting with Chiaki Mukai from Japan. I met her at a meeting, and I knew she was a cardiothoracic surgeon. And she gave me her card, and I got her little card, says a JAXA, and on her name it said astronaut. And my eyes rolled up like this big question mark on my face, looking up to space. And she had that little innocent smile, very, what's the English word for that? No, not pure. Who can help me? Bescheiden in German. Modest, yeah, very modest. Like she said twice, but very modest. So I love her.
Thanks. Yeah. By the way, did someone? No, I go to you. But did someone recognize the first astronaut, the one in the picture, the one who was smoking during training? He never flew. He was part of the first group of cosmonauts. He was Grigory Nielubov. And he was dismissed from the corps, and he got into depression, and he died very young. So it's the story of not everybody get into space. So just for you to know. No, no, he drank too much, and then depression. It wasn't easy for him. So
Jane and myself, we met pretty much every living Apollo astronaut last year, or earlier this year at SpaceFest. And, from Gene Cernan, Charlie Duke, Dick Gordon, Ed Mitchell, every single one of them was an inspiring person. Gene Cernan, for me, is the best. Gene Cernan's brilliance, his modesty, his passion, 40 years on, he's still answering the same questions with a smile, with graciousness. And, to know that he's one of only 12 people to have done what he's done, and to do that with that level of greatness is just amazing. Really amazing to watch.
Beautiful. Do we still have time? 1 minute.
Okay, I have to say again some of the pioneers. So one is the cosmonaut Alexei Leonov. The second one that probably I most admire is Jim Lovell, because he went twice to the moon but never landed. That was kind of a really bad luck to be there. And the third one, the future astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti. So.
Good, we like that.
Just one to add. Does anyone know Mike Melville? Yeah, so he was the first astronaut to go into space on a commercial space flight with SpaceUP 1. So I didn't know his name until 5 minutes ago. But the thing is, this guy showed me that I can go into space maybe one day, because he went there on the cheap. So let's remember Mike Melville and thank him for his flight, because maybe each of us in several years is going to be able to go to space thanks to him.
Thank you, and thank you to the organization.
You missed to ask one gentleman who is his favorite astronaut.
Well, we were debating here what an astronaut is, by the way, and of course I have a way of looking at people in a different way, because I see people in space, so I see myself in space. We were discussing here with Space Kate that Chris Hadfield, for example, it's a very good round astronaut, or Sergei Krikalev, it's also a very good round astronaut. But it's interesting, the different perception from people, and I was listening with attention there with a lot of interest. It's pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that was a good bridge, because our next speaker actually just spoke.